Well, hey there, this is Ina from Taproot Tarot, and I want to respond to Imogen of Sapling Tarot's video on having a tarot deck collection and being a collector. I watched and shared this video like 2 weeks ago, and then just stuff happened. So it's been a while. I've missed making videos and being here. But I had to honor some post-illness and holiday fatigue and take a little bit of a rest, as well as, with the continued need for action and organizing, I've increased my volunteer hours and put more focus on organizing. So I might have a little bit less time here and there to post, but I still have a lot of videos planned and definitely lots of things that I want to share with this channel. But it also felt really good to kind of turn off YouTube for a little bit and focus elsewhere. Although in the last few days, I've gotten caught up on some of the responses to this video, and they're really good. I really love how thoughtful and varied everybody is. Question number 1, how long have you been collecting decks? And the title says tarot, but Imogen makes it clear it can be any type of deck that we collect. And I got into tarot in 2019. And I would estimate that I started collecting in 2020. I believe that's when I found out about TDM. Prior to that, my first deck was the Mother Peace Tarot, and I had just never been interested in RWS tradition decks. But the Mother Peace drew me in 2019. Then later, I really resonated with Marseille and other PIP tradition decks. So sometime in 2020, I started collecting TDM and other PIP decks. Number 2, what kind of collection do you have? And there's a lot of directions that we can take this, but I would say the main focus of my collection is historical decks for sure, with a pretty solid representation of vintage, old interesting vintage decks as well. Number 3, are you a completionist? And Imogen talks about the goblin brain that's involved with the tendency to be a completionist, and I very much experienced the goblin brain for sure. And it's something that I need to just logically talk myself out of, which is really interesting because I'm not a collector. I don't actually like having stuff. Having stuff stresses me out. And other than books, which I wouldn't even consider a collection because they're more, just books that I want to read. I buy them for utilitarian purposes, not for collection purposes. And to support authors that I like, that kind of thing. Other than books, though, I really don't have any collections. And so tarot is my first exploration into the collection world. So where did this goblin brain come from? I have no idea. Because it doesn't seem like it would be my natural tendency, but it is. I guess it's about just kind of being methodical and making things make sense. Makes me want to complete a series or something like that. So there are definitely examples of where I show an interest in a particular type of historical deck, and then I feel like I would like multiple different examples that are very similar. I probably don't need all of them, but I get them because they're cool to look at. And part of my collection is as a library to, explore tarot history, which is a big interest for me. As far as supporting specific artists, interestingly, the artist that I'm probably most enthusiastic about is Lelania Simone. Her decks are from an RWS tradition, which is interesting. But I've supported her from the beginning, from her very first tarot deck that she created. And her latest one, the Decadent Tarot, was one that I told myself I really didn't need. It was based around an artist I wasn't familiar with. And so I didn't back that Kickstarter, unusually. And I told myself, just because this is an artist and creator that I appreciate, I don't need to have every single one of her decks. Well, then I made a video where I mentioned it and linked to the Kickstarter. And then I looked at the cards for the first time, and they're so gorgeous that I ended up being a late backer. So now, once that one comes out, I will have all of her decks. And that's supposed to be her last deck. Definitely an instance where I tried not to be a completionist, but I just couldn't help it. I made a mindful choice not to buy the deck, figuring I didn't need it. But once I really saw it and resonated with it, I made another mindful choice to go ahead and back it. And side note, I also backed her pendulum Kickstarter because I do love pendulums, and having a pendulum by Lelania Simone sounds amazing, so I'm excited for that as well. Number 4, how do you organize or store your collection? Organize is not an appropriate term. I do have several different shelves. I have a bookshelf in my living room that has 4 drawers in the bottom. I bought that specifically for tarot storage. And I have plans for reorganizing my tarot area. I have actually just gotten out a bunch of decks for the videos I'm recording today. And so my plan is, now that everything's kind of out and in a jumble, to move ahead with this reorganization project that I have. It involves some furniture rearranging and hanging of shelves and things like that. So it's a big project. But I'm really looking forward to having that done because I think I will appreciate and get better use out of my my tarot collection and practice having everything in order. Number 5, what is your favorite thing about your tarot collection? I think I have really weird taste, and largely because I wasn't really a part of a tarot community for a long time. You know, I was exposed to tarot from the 90s onward, but just it never spoke to me because most of what I was seeing was RWS decks, which are lovely, but I don't resonate with them really. So I haven't been kind of in the tarot world for very long, and I think as a result of that, some of the decks that I gravitate toward are pretty unusual, I think, and because of that, I think my collection is pretty unique, and I really like that about it. Number 7, what is the biggest category of your collection? Definitely historical decks, especially because that spans many different traditions. So not just tarot, but I have historical playing card decks, historical Minchiate decks, historical Lenormand decks, and so on. So definitely historical decks, that's my interest. Oh, I skipped number 6. What is your least favorite thing about or something to improve your collection? That would be to get it organized. So that is kind of a follow along to the previous prompt where, you know, I definitely indicated that I'd like to get things organized. One thing, as a reference library, you know, sometimes I'll be thinking of a deck and I'm like, I know that I have this one particular deck that has a certain unique characteristic. I can't remember which one it is. And sometimes that involves either not figuring it out or even getting out a bunch of decks and having to take a bunch of time and go through the decks. So at some point I'm going to make a spreadsheet, which I definitely should have done a year ago before I really ramped up my collection. So that way it's searchable and I can include a field with unique characteristics that I enjoy about that particular deck. So if I want to look up the deck that has a butterfly in the Fool, I can just search it and find that. All right, getting settled in around this sunlight here. So that was number 6. I've already done number 7. Number 8 is, what is the smallest category of your collection? That'll be didactic decks. And those are important to tarot history because the images from didactic engravings were borrowed to create the 5th Triumph suit by card makers, and those include the Mantegna decks. My newest example is this miniature one from Il Manighello, and it is one of the later, less fine style of engraving for the Mantegna images, the S series. And didactic images are ones that were used for moralistic education and weren't originally cards, but were later adapted as cards. I also have the Lo Scarabeo colorized version, which is the original finer engraving called the E series. And they're each a set of 50 cards with different virtues, areas of study, and things like that, social classes. And again, since these didactic images have so much meaning behind them, adopting them as the 5th Triumph suit for Tarot decks just increased their usability for divination. I also have a modern deck that's based on didactic images called the Cards of Nostradamus. And these are based on Cesare Lipa's Iconologia, which is a great book to have around if you want to understand medieval and Renaissance symbolism. So these are historical images, but a modern concept deck. So it's kind of interesting, these didactic decks these didactic images took the form of loose leaves of paper or books, which were used for education. Then they were adopted into Cherokee decks. Those and other types of images were borrowed for the fifth triumphal suit, so that one of the four suits wouldn't have to be taken out to be the trumps. And that led to not only divination, but also using Cherokee cards themselves for didactic or educational purposes, which I think probably led to the invention of flashcards. So I'm pretty sure we have tarot or Cherokee to thank for the invention of flashcards. But yeah, those three decks are my didactic decks, and I would say that's my smallest category. Number 9, do you have a holy grail in your collection? So for me, I think a holy grail is maybe a valuable, even hard to get or out of print deck that's also for a really good deal. And I have a few examples of those. So one of them is this Mary Packard Tarot de Marseille, which is a remake of the Madenier. And I found this on Poshmark. This version has been long out of print. It comes with a book in English, and it is from Sweetwater Press. Now, interestingly, this same seller had both this one and Mary Packard's Golden Tarot. I didn't buy this one from the Poshmark seller, but this one is still in print, as far as I know. It definitely was still in print at that time. And the seller had this one listed for more than what she had the Tarot de Marseille listed for. Clearly, she didn't realize what she had, and had it priced at something like $30. And then back then, I was even more cheap than I am now. And I had the audacity to make an offer on this deck, which normally, you know, over the time of watching for a copy of this deck, I've seen it for anywhere from $70 to $100. So normally you would think seeing it for $30, I would just snap that right up. But no, I made an offer, and I got it for like $23. I can't believe I had that audacity, but she accepted the offer, so yay for Poshmark. But when I bought this, I bought it for the book. These come in like a box set that comes with a tarot cloth and a book. The books aren't in these boxes because I have them on my shelf. They're really good books, and I reference them. But I wasn't familiar with the reputation of the Madenier as being the most beautiful TDM at the time that I bought this. But when I opened it up and saw it, I thought, wow, this is remarkably lovely. And you can really see how visually pleasing their faces are. And it has beautiful backs as well. So it's a gorgeous deck. And I got it for a steal, like $23. Some other examples are my Tarot Balbi, which I found on Mercari. This one has some water damage and is brittle, so I don't use it. I wouldn't shuffle it. It's an absolutely gorgeous deck, though. And they're usually like $150 for one that's in good shape. And I got this one on Mercari for $30-some. So for me, that's a holy grail, to find a gorgeous, hard to find collector item for not very much money. And my other example is the Australian Contemporary Dream Tarot, which I'll be talking about in a following video on PIP decks. And this one is usually priced around $80 or so. This particular copy is signed by the artist. But it also is a little bit musty and has, I wouldn't say water damage, but it definitely has some mildew on it, or it had before I cleaned it up. So because of that, it was priced very reasonably at, $35 or something like that. So that's my holy grail, is finding a hard to find, unique collector item that I want for a good price. And that's not actually an easy feat for me because I'm not a big fan of shopping. So I have, moments in time where I have enough interest to kind of look through and find good deals. For the most part, I just happen to luck upon them, though, because, like I said, shopping as a hobby does not interest me. Number 10, do you ever wish your collection was bigger, smaller, or is it complete? Yes. So I wish that my collection were smaller, because having stuff stresses me out and trying to keep it organized. And at the same time, simultaneously, I want more, for sure. And then I go through various periods of time of feeling like my collection feels complete, which is never going to be a permanent state of things. But it's certainly a feeling that I often have. I had 5 months of no buy last year because I really felt like my collection was pretty complete. Although during that time I was amassing a wish list for my birthday. So that feeling of completion is certainly going to be ephemeral. How often do you declutter your collection? Number 11. I never have yet, and at some point I'm going to need to, as I get better at knowing, what kind of collection I actually want to have. So I will need to clear out some space. I have a very small house and not a lot of storage area. And I don't really like the idea of just holding on to decks without a purpose. Even if that purpose is, not even to use them, but to be a reference or something to appreciate visually, that's a purpose for sure. Number 12, do you ever get envious of seeing other people's collections? Absolutely not. Again, having things stresses me out. My taste is pretty different, I think. So I absolutely love seeing other people's collections and appreciating their joy and the beauty of those collections without feeling envious. Not because I'm like spiritually advanced or anything like that, but really just because stuff stresses me out. Number 13, who on YouTube has the best collection videos? And I don't watch a ton of collection videos. I watch a few here and there, but not enough for me to make that kind of a categorization or that kind of judgment. But I do enjoy walkthroughs, and based on people's walkthroughs, I have a sense of their collections. And there are so many creators who have amazing collections that go without saying, but I have a few that I think are a little more off the beaten path. Lady Cara of Lady Cara's Tarot has an awesome collection based on her knowledge of art history and of artists and the wisdom that she has from being in theater and music. So she has a remarkable collection. The way she collects is also pretty cool, just the way that she is not afraid to buy something and try it out, and if she's not feeling it, she's not feeling it and she'll let it go. So I really like that. Ellen of Moomin Tarot has a great collection. It's not vast, but it's very mindful. I really enjoyed hearing about how she chooses which decks she wants, and there's a lot of intent around each deck that she brings in, it seems like, and I really admire that. Nova of Nova Mundi has an awesome collection. I really enjoy her stories about like going to an estate sale and learning about some relative who, somewhere in Europe who had some tarot cards and ending up with very rare, really cool tarots because of that. Then on top of the rare historical tarots, she also just has a ton of decks. Her collection is broad and varied, which I really enjoy. And then there's Johnny of Johnny the Librarian, who has some really cool, rare, interesting decks. So Johnny is a collector for sure and has some decks that you won't see, or you won't be likely to see anywhere else. So I really enjoy Johnny's walkthroughs as well, and I will tag all 4 of those channels. And what is some advice you'd give to a future or new deck collector? Number 14. So for decades, my familiarity with tarot was just stemming from the explosion of RWS decks in the 90s. And so learning that there were other types of decks out there later in life, particularly PIP decks and TDM decks, made me feel like those types of decks were novel and maybe more rare. They aren't. There's a ton out there. to kind of quote Tom Benjamin, he mentioned something about when he got into Marseille Tarot, he's like, oh, I only need one deck. Famous last words. No. So from my experience, when I have found a new category of interest, it feels like it's rare. And so that each one you see is like a rare opportunity to have an example of that category. So unusual PIP decks were one that I would, I'd see a PIP deck and I was like, oh, I'm a PIP deck collector. That's a PIP deck. I'm going to buy it. So that's not, pretty soon you realize there's a ton of different PIP decks out there. So you actually have to decide which ones you really want and not just, that you're going to buy it just because it's a PIP deck. So my advice is when you find a new category of tarot or a new category of decks that you're interested in, explore, really do some research and find out the breadth of options available out there, because it's probably more than you realize when you're first getting into that particular category, before you just start gobbling up all of the ones that you come across. And I'm saying you, but I really mean me, because that's definitely what I did. I have some very random decks that I simply bought because I thought, I get that kind of deck now, and I didn't think there were as many as there were. Once I found out how many there really were, then I realized, I didn't need to have all of them. So that's my advice. I have really enjoyed everybody's responses to this. It's not really a tag. Some people are using tags to this prompt. And I think these questions were so thoughtful. I've really been enjoying Imogen's channel and content lately. So I will tag them for sure and check them out if you haven't already. And if you haven't responded yet and would like to, either in the comments or with your own video, please do. I look forward to it. And I will talk to you next time. Bye.